James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Welcome, listener, to our second ever Nerf Nugget. We didn't know how many of these we would have. They just sort of appear spontaneously.
Yep. Yeah, whenever we have an idea that we go, well, that's not enough for an episode.
Yep. And we still want to talk about Star Wars. So as usual, I'm Kyler.
I'm Chris.
I'm Ross.
Yep. And we're going to talk today about Star Wars Resistance. So Star Wars Resistance premiered on Sunday night, Sunday, October 7th. I had Ross over and his lovely wife, and we watched it, and it was awesome. I didn't invite Chris because I hate Chris. No, I'm just kidding. No. I honestly...
That's why we spend so much time together.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I just honestly didn't even cross my mind.
No worries. I wouldn't have been able to make it Sunday.
Yeah, anyway. Chris has little kids. Ross doesn't, so it's easier for him to come over. Anyway,
that is true.
So we watched it. We watched the premiere. It was a two-parter, basically. They take two regular episodes and just air them at the same time.
So it was an extra long episode. I mean, it was 45 minutes.
That's how they did it with Clone Wars, or not with Clone Wars, with Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, and it worked pretty well. So they did that again, just to kind of give you an introduction to the show and to the characters. So we're just going to kind of share our thoughts, and Chris is going to pipe up and ask any questions that pop into his head. And anyway, so I'll go ahead and start if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
I thought, in comparison to Rebels and Clone Wars, as far as introducing new characters goes, this was much smoother. So, well, then Rebels. Let me start that. So, Clone Wars doesn't really spend almost any time introducing the characters because you already know who Yoda is, who Anakin is, who Obi-Wan is.
With the exception of
the clone commanders.
Yeah, you introduce... but Anakin's apprentice. Ahsoka, thank you. Yeah.
So, they spend some time introducing Ahsoka, but it feels natural because you're literally only introducing one character.
Yeah, exactly. We know
who everybody else is. And then occasionally they'll be like, oh, this is Commander Thyre, he's a clone. This is Commander Fox. And it's like, okay, so... But you already basically know who they are because they're still clones. Mm-hmm. So Clone Wars never really faced the problem of how do we introduce a whole bunch of new characters to the fan base? Yeah. Because they pretty much could do it one at a time.
Well, which, to be fair, is a problem of any TV show beginning generally.
True.
Look, here's the whole cast.
Right.
So that's a traditional pilot episode problem.
Right.
That Clone Wars managed to...
With Star Wars, though, is that the very first TV show they had didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
That was a hurdle they did not have to overcome, which was nice, but then by comparison, every other show you're going, oh, well, it wasn't Clone Wars. Clone Wars never had this problem.
Yeah.
So when Star Wars Rebels comes out, the first episode is very, very much like, we're going to force feed you a whole bunch of stuff. Here's Ezra, here's Kanan, here's all these people. Please learn their names. And then we're going to spend the first 6 of 13 episodes in the first season fleshing out these characters. We're going to do an Hera episode. We're going to do a Sabine episode. Yeah. And so the first season of Rebels didn't really feel all that great as far as quality because they spent so much time introducing you to all these new characters.
Yeah.
Now, for Resistance, this first episode I thought was much smoother than Rebels as far as introducing these new characters.
Oh, I think that partially is because they only introduced half of them, half of the announced characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a wise choice not to be like, here's the full main cast in this 40 minutes.
That's often a good method to take.
And fortunately as well, we already know Poe.
Right.
Poe Dameron makes an appearance in the pilot episode. And so we already know him. We don't have to introduce his character. So that's nice because that's one of like 4 people that they're going to show you that you already know. And then, of course, the whole episode revolves around the main character, Kaz Ziono, I think is what his name is, or Kai Ziono, something like that.
I don't remember.
I'll get his name down eventually, people. I've only seen it once.
Didn't he also use like a false name?
Yeah,
for a little bit of the episode or something?
I can't remember. And then they had like his trusty sidekick, basically, this green guy named Miku, who essentially has Asperger's. He is basically Abed from Community, where anything that comes into his mind, he's going to say it, which allows him to give you plot-relevant information and exposition in a way that feels natural to the character and feels natural within the world itself. Whereas a lot of times in Rebels, like, Kanan meets Ezra, and he's like, hey, I'm Kanan. Oh, okay. Guy who I just met and I'm also a criminal who you can't trust, and you're telling me your name? Nice to meet you, Like, It felt very weird when they would give that sort of exposition early on in Rebels. Because it's like, there's no reason for this ghost crew of criminals to trust you, a street criminal they have just met, and yet they're taking you on board their ship. They're telling you everyone's real, actual names right away. Where Niku in Resistance is, he just has Asperger's. So he's just like, oh, you're a good pilot. Hey, everybody, here's a good pilot. And then, comedy ensues, right? Or whatever. So anything he says, and he did drop a lot of plot-relevant information, but it made sense and it felt natural for his character. So I actually applaud that decision. You meet only one of the other ace pilots. There are 5 ace pilots besides this main character. And you only meet one of them in the pilot episode. And so you actually get a slower burn, a slower release on her. Yeah,
I like to. I doubt. Well, I know you haven't seen this, but I doubt you've seen this, Russ. But Inuyasha is a good example of building up a group that I like, where it's like they start you with.
I assume this is an anime thing?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was going to ask.
I didn't know.
Was that any?
With a name like
word?
that. Yeah, Inuyasha. No, but they basically start you off with, here's the 2 main characters and some other characters that are significant, but it's these 2. And then it's a couple episodes before it's like, okay, and now also we're going to introduce Shippo. And then a couple episodes later, we're going to introduce, and we gradually build. So by the end of a first season, roughly, you've got this full group of these people are our adventuring party.
Right.
But it's, I don't see a lot of them try to front load it really straight up. And especially ever since I saw Inuyasha years ago, I was just like, that is a nice approach to take. I would like to see more stories play with how many of these people are even going to stick around, and so anyway, back to you.
Yeah, and so apparently these next couple episodes they're going to introduce another couple of the aces and then another couple after that, so that you do get the slower burn, and I like that because it gives us the audience time to actually get to know this person that you're introducing. So the person they introduce, I'm looking up the names real quick, because, again, I've only seen it once. I will have these memorized at some point soon, people. Just, you have to forgive me.
I have to wait for the DVD release.
Yeah, not even Kyler can retain all in Star Wars information immediately.
Kazuda Ziono, that's what his name is. Kaz is what they kept calling him.
Right.
Okay, so that's the main character, sorry. Niku Vozo is he's this kind of green alien. He's a Nikto, is his species.
He's a Nikto named Niku?
Yeah. A Nikto only, I think, they show up like background in Jabba's palace.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him, and I recognize him.
There's a Jedi Nikto who sacrifices himself on Ryloth to save the Twi'leks. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen that episode,
Same species, but he looks different, though. They said he's a Nikto, and I'm like, that doesn't look like the ones before, but I guess maybe there are different...
Canonically adjusted...
Maybe, I don't know.
Like the Klingons for Star Trek? That'd be sad.
Yeah, well, it happens. He's a genetically engineered Nikto.
Yeah, so then you have
He's an
Jarek
X-Men Nikto.
Yeager.
He's the next step in Nikto evolution. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So you have Jarek Yeager, who is Poe's sort of point of contact, I guess, on so this takes place on a planet called Castellon, and there's a refueling, like a fuel refinery station, like an old truck stop, basically. Only it's massive. If any of you have driven through the Midwest and you see those massive truck stops where they have room for 200 semis, and it's almost like its own little city, just kind of out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Nebraska or whatever. It's kind of like that. So it's this big square-shaped station floating on this ocean planet, kind of like Camino or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was basically just this old fuel refinery station that then kind of fell out of major use or whatever, so now it's just this hub for racing. And on this station is this guy, Jarek Yeager. He's a human. He's got kind of bushy brown hair, like a lion's mane almost. He's got some sweet chops.
They're kind of dreadlocks.
Yeah,
so
it
should also be noted that it's very stylized, and so there's not a lot of full-on detail with things that need detail, like hair.
It drives Ross crazy a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's as long as it stays consistent, it's fine. It's just that you have to do a little more to kind of figure out what some of these things are. Sometimes, like those are supposed to be dreadlocks on his head.
Yeah,
but they don't look like it. It just looks like clumps of kind of.
I just remember being impressed by his really excellent mutton chops that he has. Yeah. He's got some pretty sweet sideburns going on. But he used to fly for the rebellion, basically. Oh, and I should also point out, too, the timeline for this. Resistance apparently is 6 months before The Force Awakens.
Was it that short?
Yeah.
That's really
Whoa.
cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
A devout, more technologically advanced person than I am went to StarWars.com and looked at the source code for the web page and found a description that wasn't published on the page, but it was hidden in the source.
Oh, dang.
That said, this is 6 months before Force Awakens.
Wow.
So that's how we know, and it was on StarWars.com, so that's official until Star Wars says otherwise.
Yeah, until they get mad that someone hacked into their system. Like, no, we're going to change it just because now.
Yeah, exactly. So until further notice, it's 6 months before Force Awakens. And so this guy, Jarek Yeager, used to be some kind of resistant or rebel pilot or something, but basically was the war's over. I just want to be retired. Leave me alone. And so when Poe comes to ask him for help in getting a spy on this station to sort of spy on the First Order, he's like, no, I don't want any part of it. Stop bugging me. Leave me alone. I said I'm retired. I don't want any part of your war. There is no war. Leave me alone. And then he agrees to let Kazuda, stay on the station. I'm looking for the, oh my gosh, Jim Rash is in this. I want him in every episode. Jim Rash is the Dean from Community.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dean
I
Hudson.
want him in every episode. So he plays this, essentially an owl on stork legs.
Yeah.
That's his alien species. And he is delightful. He says 4 lines and every one of them are hilarious.
Yeah.
I want that character in every episode. And Greg Proops plays his partner.
I did know Proops was in this, and I do love Greg Proops.
So those two
Greg
together...
Proops would be a frequent guest on Whose Line Is It Anyway, for those of you who don't recognize the name.
Yeah, he so this is really funny.
Plus also...
Oh no, he's not his part. Sorry, he's not Jim Rash's partner. Greg Proops in episode 1 is the 2-headed announcer at the pod race.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah,
Greg Proops in Resistance is the announcer for the racers.
That's great.
So I thought that was kind of funny. I was even, while Ross and I were watching this, I was sitting there and I'm going, wait a minute. I recognize that voice. Yeah. Wait a minute, is that who? And I got out my phone, I looked it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Greg Proops, who also played an announcer in Star Wars before. So that was kind of funny. But let's see, where... Oh, Tora Doza, that's who the girl is, the other racer.
Okay.
So... Kaz, in order to prove himself worthy of being able to stay on the station and not be in trouble or whatever, essentially challenges that he's the best racer. So there are 5 aces that sort of live on this oil rig kind of a thing and race. And he gets to challenge one of them. They say, okay, fine, if you think you're the best, you have to race one of the best. Here are your 5. Pick one. So he picks this young girl because he thinks he can beat her or whatever.
And it even says that she was the most recent to be added.
Yeah, that she was the most recently added ace. So he's like, okay, this will probably be my best shot at taking her down. And her name is Tora Doza. Really a fun character.
Yeah.
Kind of happy-go-lucky.
She really reminded me of Diva from Overwatch.
Oh, I see. I don't play Overwatch.
Well, I don't really either, but the shorts that they do.
I was going to say in temperament and in her attitude, she strikes me as Kaylee from Firefly. A little bit that kind of happy-go-lucky, hey, yeah, she is good at what she does, but she's not here to crush you into the dirt. She's just hey, I want to race, let's have fun. Hey, how are you doing? And very, very nice character. Yeah. And you get that immediately from her that she's not out for blood like some of these other racers are, where it's I will win at all costs, and if you die along the way, sucks to be you. She comes to him and wishes him good luck and asks how his ship is does he need anything, really, really nice. And of course he's all moon-eyed over her because he's oh, you're a pretty girl. Oh.
Because she's the female lead.
Yeah. Well, one of them. They actually have quite a few.
Yeah.
Well, but from what you're saying, that she's the female lead next to his...
Well, no, but
there's another one.
There is another female ace pilot who's going to be in this main cast.
But we haven't met her yet.
That's true.
We're getting
for this episode.
She is Freya Fenris, which is a sweet name. And she's got kind of this Russian accent kind of a thing.
Well, we haven't met her.
Yeah, we haven't met her yet. I'm just excited because she's played by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn.
Right.
So I'm super excited to meet her. They have a girl Unkar Plutt that runs the cantina. Mm-hmm. She's that blobfish, whatever species he is. Yeah. And then one of my other favorite thing that they showed, which then ended up not being one of my favorite things, and I was very disappointed. In the book Phasma, which was overall pretty good, although there was like a whole middle section that could have just been deleted and you wouldn't have lost anything from the story. You learn of a rivalry within the First Order between Captain Phasma and another stormtrooper named Cardinal. Cardinal was in charge of all stormtrooper recruiting and training in the First Order. And Phasma then comes along and gets all, she's a tough warrior or whatever, and starts to eclipse him. And that doesn't sit well with him, so he's looking for ways to undermine her. And he is the only stormtrooper in red armor in the First Order. It was given to him by Brendel Hux as a sign of his respect and devotion to the First Order, and he is apart from the rest of you stormtroopers. He is something special. And so the very first scene of this first episode, you have a blood red First Order TIE Interceptor chasing down a bunch of these X-Wings. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Red, could this be Cardinal? Are they going to give us some screen time with Cardinal? That would be really cool, because the character of Cardinal is really interesting. And then it shows inside the cockpit, and there's a stormtrooper in red armor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Cardinal. This is going to be so cool. And then you get to the end of the episode, and you find out his name is Major or something.
Yeah, it wasn't him.
Major Elric Vonreg, who is obviously not Cardinal. And I was like, oh, bummer. So this is obviously after the book Phasma, because at the time of Phasma, there was only one stormtrooper in the entire First Order who has not white armor, and it's Cardinal and is red. So I was like, okay, and that's when I started doing some research and found out, this is 6 months before Force Awakens. We are on the cusp of war.
Right.
Which is going to be really cool going forward as we get closer to The Force Awakens, when war is actually open now.
Yeah.
And beyond. So that'll be pretty cool. Anyway, Ross, what do you have? What are your thoughts?
I was impressed with it, that it doesn't seem to be suffering from the same thing that both Rebels and Clone Wars did in the focus towards their target audience. See, so when I started with Clone Wars, I probably started the first series probably 3 times before I finally finished the first season. Just because, I don't know, you'd get so far in, you'd hit a couple Jar Jar episodes, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't get into it. Rebels was a lot better. I wasn't as interested at the end of the first season, but I did finish it. This first episode, actually, I was as invested as you would be in seasons 2 or 3 of the other series. So even though it is still targeted, there's enough of the slapstick for the definite younger generation, which is...
and we watched it with my twin girls as well, so, and they loved it.
They're 9?
9.
9? So. Yeah, they enjoyed it. But there was still enough to actually kind of keep you interested. There was actually a legitimate plot line instead of just random stupid little things.
It didn't feel quite like here's a MacGuffin while we run around and show you characters, and here you go, here, have some names.
Right.
While they chase this MacGuffin. Like, it actually was, there was a legit point to the episode, which was getting Kaz integrated on this station.
Right. And I feel like it's actually going to have an overarching story instead of just being a serial, like a lot of younger TV shows.
That is the tendency these days.
Yeah.
Which I approve of.
Well, and honestly, in Clone Wars, the first season of Clone Wars typically did that. It was a serial. Or you might have 2 episodes or 3 episodes that tied together, but then it would be back to a serial. Rebels was the same way. Those first 6 episodes, they are bottle episodes.
Yeah, those
They're
first,
just totally contained
they were.
serials, And then the second half is when the plot starts to pick up a little bit. But I think you're right. I think we are going to see an overall plot to this. And this, actually, I was going to say this earlier and I forgot, so I'm glad you reminded me. But there seems to be, and we were talking about this off mic, that part of what makes these shows so good as they get on is that they are aging the show with the listeners, or with the viewers. So, you have a target age for season 1 of Clone Wars, but you literally mature and get darker as your audience gets older. And Rebels, I think, raised that age for the starting point a little bit, and this seems to have raised it again.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we're already starting a little bit more serious, a little bit more dark than Rebels did, and Rebels started a little bit more serious and a little bit more dark than Clone Wars did, which is great, because if it follows that same pattern, then we're already pretty serious. Like the tone, especially the last half of the episode or the last shot of the episode where it goes back and you see Starkiller Base and the whole First Order fleet and the music there, like, they're letting you know the stakes are pretty serious right out of the gate. And so I'm going, this is really great, because they're only going to get more serious, and it's going to get more dark and a little bit more mature every season. I'm really looking forward to it. Like, it seemed like if I had to pick, I'd say Clone Wars, the target starting age was probably around 8 or 9. And so that by the time you finish, you're about 14 when you're getting into the really dark 5th, 6th season. With, Anakin really going to the dark side. You've got all the visions, Yoda goes to the Sith homeworld and has his dark, like, evil Yoda visions and stuff. Like, that felt about right for 13, 14-year-olds.
I don't know. I would think it was even still just a little younger than that.
And then Rebels, I think, started probably at, like, 10-ish. As its, like, starting point for season 1.
Ish. I would still say maybe a little younger, but it definitely by the end, that last season, like, especially the Ahsoka Vader fight.
Oh my gosh. Good. But, and so this, I'm going, my girls are 9 and they enjoyed it, but I think a lot of the stuff that they're showing is stuff that my girls won't care about for another year or two. Because it didn't have a lot of that slapstick comedy that little kids like. Where
there was
the first
some
season of Clone Wars definitely
did, yeah.
And Rebels even a little bit. I guess it remains to be seen. We've only seen one episode.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and I feel like there was enough of the slapstick humor for the younger generation. But again, I think it did a good job at actually dividing the line. There was enough for the adults watching it with the kids to also stay invested. There's enough for the kids to be interested as well, even if they're not getting the finer points.
Well, and this goes back to our
plot.
Previous discussions about how excellent Dave Filoni is at being able to walk that line of what's going to keep the grown-up Star Wars fans happy and what's going to get new Star Wars fans into it.
Well, and I hope that they're doing that on purpose, because they have seen how much the older generation does enjoy those cartoons that are, again, like Star Wars was targeted at a much younger audience, but still, those that were much older still found enjoyment.
Yep. Anyway, Chris, we're going to turn the time over to you. What questions do you have for us?
Oh, well, actually, my first thing was I just wanted to run past you my description of what I just heard of the show based on the names I was hearing and everything. So this is basically the story of an affable warrior panda recruiting a Minotaur pilot to work on a station run by a giant mech suit while competing with and working alongside a king of Egypt and the Jewish scriptures, fighting the attacks of some relative of the Full Metal Alchemist.
You're not far off. Thank you for that. That's so good. Oh, man. That was hard.
So I kept hearing all these names, and I was just kind of like, oh, Kaz the Minotaur. Man, that takes me back. Cool. Oh, Torah, like the scriptures. Yeah, that's great. Jewish scriptures. That's great. Oh, hey, Jaeger. Yeah. Jaeger. And then at some point I was like, I gotta write this down, because I keep getting so many of these. And you said Elric, and I was like, Edward Elric. Alphonse Elric? One of the Elrics. Some Elric has turned evil. Anyway.
That was so good. I did not expect that.
So, that was just a collection of references for all the nerds in the audience, and which theoretically should be the audience.
The ones of nerds that we have in the audience.
Yeah. Okay, so having next to no exposure to what's coming in this, so how many characters of significance would you say they're withholding so far?
The other 4 aces.
Oh, you mean for the...
You got one of the aces, right? You had Torah?
Yes, there are 5 total. So there are, you said how many characters they are withholding. How many have we not seen?
Yeah, how many that we know are going to show up and be significant.
So 4 more aces.
Okay.
Captain Phasma. Well, okay, hold on. Actually, I'm going to back it up. Because
Poe
and Phasma are both going to be in this, but I don't know how much they're going to be in this. Because Poe is only in this episode briefly at the beginning, briefly in the middle, and briefly at the end. Just while he's having conversations with this Jaeger guy, saying, would you please help him out? Would you give him a bat?
I'm going to jump up in and interrupt my own question to ask, was he voiced by Oscar Isaacs? Cool.
Yes,
That's why I figured these days that's
and
not something
Gwendolyn
that they'd slip
Christie
on.
is voicing Phasma, which is going to be cool.
Yeah,
but also,
I
given
love
the
Christie.
cost
I love
of those
Christie.
people, that's why I'm saying they're probably not going to be around too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So, depending on if you qualify them as significant, then I guess Phasma needs to be introduced.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think I would probably...
Well, and the fact that they showed Starkiller Base right at the end, they're going to be doing something there. If this is 6 months right before Force Awakens, then, I mean, there's going to be a lot happening on Starkiller Base that would be interesting. Although, I don't know if that would really be appropriate for the show.
I think we're going to see this Red Stormtrooper, Major Elric Voragal, whatever his name is. Shout out for you Critical Role fans. I think we're going to see more of him, and so I would, since he didn't have any line. Well, no, he had like one line when he gets to Starkiller Base. They're like, "Identify yourself," and he's like, "It's me, Major Elric blah blah blah." And they're like, "Okay, you're cleared for landing."
Yes, of the northern blobbity blahs.
Yes, exactly. Of the Manchester blobbity blahs.
Was he, for some reason, was he only ever shown at the beginning?
Yeah, he's in the dogfight at the beginning.
Because I missed that first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes.
Yeah, my mom snagged Ross. She was over, and she snagged Ross and asked him about his family and how things are going.
Yeah,
I was going to say tech help, tech support.
Yeah,
that would be the other.
Exactly. Yeah, our families have been friends for a long time. Anyway, so yeah, Ross missed the first little bit. So the Red Stormtrooper, he's in the dogfight in the very beginning, which is pretty cool. Although I saw it hyped up way too much. I think like IGN or somebody. So they were like, he dealt, Kaz deals massive damage to a interceptor. I'm like, he nicked him once with an ion blast. That is hardly major damage.
Yeah.
Granted, First Order TIE Fighters are upgraded, but you don't really do major damage to a TIE Fighter without destroying the whole thing anyway.
It's either there's no damage or total damage.
Yes.
There is no
there's no in between.
Anyway, so minor damage was
there could
done.
be just enough damage to send the TIE Fighter spinning off in space in order to keep the villain
Into an
alive for
asteroid.
successive episodes.
Oh, true. Yeah. So,
and for the toys.
So
Yes.
I think we will see. I would count this Red Stormtrooper, this Major Elric guy.
Yeah, he seems
I would
pretty-
count him as a not having been introduced in this first episode, even though he was
was
on
in it.
screen, but
Yeah.
we didn't really get to know
We're showing
him.
them, hey, there's a villain of
Yeah.
significance.
So my guess is that he's going to be the primary villain, at least for this first season. He will
Yeah.
be the point of contact in the First Order that
Right.
we see things through. And then Phasma will pop in every now and again to be like, "I'm Phasma, and I'm in charge, and you need to be better, or I'm going to kill you."
Because just seeing that last scene of him, for some reason I thought he had something to do with, like, the other pilots. Like, maybe he's one of those pilots covertly or something.
I
He's
don't
going to be a
think so.
racer, another competitor.
I don't think so.
But again,
So
that's
I
me
think
just
it
making
seems
stuff
like
up.
there's about
I don't think the
five-
Von Hubble Bottoms would allow such a thing. Like, it would really piss them off
Yeah.
if they heard about that.
Are those the Connecticut Hobblebottoms?
No. The Vermont Hubble Bottoms.
Oh, okay. Oh, my mistake.
The family split
Yeah,
into the
that's
two
right,
states.
yeah.
The very, very intense divide there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think really we're going to see about 5 more main characters. The other 4 aces, and then this
Yeah.
Imperial red armored guy.
Well, and also we didn't really talk about the other pit crew.
Oh,
There were a couple other characters
Yeah.
that were just kind of mentioned. You got a little bit of
yeah.
personality.
So
than they left.
there's the Jack Yeager, whatever his name is, who is I know, this episode and its names. Oh my god!
I can't hear the word Jaeger without singing that. What's singing? I don't know the words. It's in German, but that first line from the Attack on Titan theme.
So yeah. So he like owns this ship and is like a like a mechanic, a car mechanic,
Yeah.
basically. And then he's got a girl that works for him, who was briefly introduced. So I guess she'll be around a little bit
Yeah,
more. So
well,
6 characters, I guess.
Because
maybe?
apparently they had a deal before where she was going to fix up the ship and then fly it because it's his ship.
And then
And then,
Kaz comes in
yeah.
and totally steals her thunder, gets parts for the ship, fixes it up. He gets to race it.
And she's grumpy about it.
Yeah, she's grumpy.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
It is.
And then there's a host of rabble on the thing. There's a whole wretched hive of scum and villainy going on.
Cool.
But yeah, main characters, the other 4 aces, the assistant mechanic lady, and then Red Stormtrooper.
So from the sound of this, the main conflict was just Kaz getting settled into the station. There's not like
and
any
that
major.
nobody was
Yeah.
taking him serious as a good or even adequate
You
pilot.
don't want to piss off a Minotaur like that.
Yeah, and so then, but after his race, they were like, "Okay, you still lost, but yeah, you've got some chops, so
Right.
you can walk among us now."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
that was-
actually, we didn't even really see the rest of the station's reaction, did we? After that?
no,
But it was just it was the reactions from the picture that we got. We're like, hey, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I think they're using that to say generally this is what also people will think is you lost, but hey, like you didn't totally suck. You gave it a pretty good effort. You almost won. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can hang out here. We're going to take you a little more seriously now.
Right.
So
how long is this first season going to be?
If I'm not mistaken, I think this first season is only a half season. I think it's only 13 episodes.
I thought so. That usually with newer stuff they try and do that,
which makes me sad because I'm like, dang it, give me my 22 episodes.
I don't know. It depends on the story. You know, it's like some stories I'm like, yeah, that was just right for the arc you had. That was a good choice, and then you like stuff like season 1 of Legend of Korra. It's like, no, that should have been a longer season. That needed to be longer, and they rushed the ending and.
Oh, they should have had that villain last for a couple of seasons. He would have been so
yeah, there's a lot of things there. But yeah, that's I feel like everything in that season was just a little bit rushed. And if they had a longer episode order, then it would have been perfect. And so, it depends. The length. If you have a story that's a certain length, it's best not to try and adjust it to a different length usually.
Tamrai Vora, I believe that's the assistant mechanic.
Okay.
I'm pretty. I could be totally wrong.
I hope not, because I can't come up with any sort of stupid pun for that.
Oh, Bobby Moynihan from SNL. He's one of the voices.
Oh, yeah, I like Bobby. He's fun.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I got.
D. Bradley Baker shows up again because that boy can't stay away from Star Wars, which we love. He's so good. He voiced all the clones and everybody. He's been around a while.
Yeah, he's great. Love
him. Any other questions, Chris?
No, I don't think so. We'll see if the audience has any. Post them on Facebook or
please do, and go be sure to watch it. It's on Disney Channel. It airs Sunday nights. Check your local.
Is there anywhere they can watch TV it online yet? Or?
Not legally.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I was forwarded a link by a fan.
I think, doesn't Disney have its own...
Okay, so you can watch it on Disney, but unless you actually have a cable subscription that includes Disney, you can't get it.
Oh, okay. It's one of the...
Okay, yeah.
Gotcha.
So you just have to wait for Disney streaming service, basically.
Or, wait till next year.
If you want to do it legally,
service.
which you totally should. We're not suggesting otherwise.
Right. So, yeah. Oh, my wife when we were watching this Sunday night, she was shocked and appalled at me because Myrna Velasco voices Tora Doza, the ace pilot, and I'm sitting there listening to her going, I know this. I know who this is. So I looked her up and I went, oh, yes, I thought that was Elena of Avalor. And my wife went, that is sad that you know the voice of Elena of Avalor. You recognize it enough that you can pick it out of this completely other show, different show. And I was like, well, to be fair, I have 9-year-old girls.
Yeah, that seems
one of whom is named Elena, so I've seen a lot of Elena of Avalor. But anyway, so that was...
I've shelved her DVDs.
Yep, there we go. Okay, well, I think we're going to call this Nerf Nugget a day. We hope you didn't suffer too badly through this episode.
I'm sure it was no worse than any of our other episodes.
Yeah. So our next episode is actually going to be discussing and dissecting the nature of Star Wars. We snuck this Nerf Nugget in there, so my announcement at the end of last episode is no longer valid. Because we didn't know this was coming up.
Too late, you've already heard it.
Anyway. So, we're going to let Ross... or no, just kidding. That's the wrong one. Boy.
No, it's the right topic.
Right topic.
Wrong segue there.
Wrong segue. I'm adequate. So we're going to be discussing the nature of Star Wars. What is it? How do we define what Star Wars is? Should be a fun one. Just kidding. I'm so adequate, you guys. I'm frazzled.
What you all missed is he pointed at Ross.
I pointed at Ross like he was going to say something, and then I realized, no, I've jumped ahead yet again.
Yes.
Anyway, for more mistakes, follow us on Twitter at More Civilized.
We're not suggesting that would be a mistake, actually.
No, I just make lots of mistakes on our Twitter, so be sure to follow those mistakes and mock me for them. And then if you want to attack me personally, join our Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast.
You can also follow the podcast through the website, a more civilized podcast.podbean.com. You can also converse with me on Twitter at Mr_Rstar.
Yep, and you can try to converse with me on Twitter at Itinerant Baxter, but I'm not on there much.
Yep. So there we go.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a More Civilized Podcast.